This week, we'll be talking about our top 5 co-op games of all time. And later on, we'll have a discussion about the new Mortal Kombat movie and a general discussion about video game movies in general and how they stack up against the rest of the medium. All that and more coming up in 3, 2, 1. Roll the intro, Mom. What's up, all y'all randos? It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us from wherever and whenever you are. This is Console Control, the show where two old heads who play video games talk about video games and whatever else we might feel like kicking around in the meantime. As always, I'm your co-host, Cracks, and I am joined, as you can see, by also your co-host,
Console Control, seize up, MFers.
We are back. We have survived another week. We have survived the obstacles. We have cleared the pitfalls. And we are here to tell the tale. Somehow, some way. Feels good.
There's a lot to talk about in today's episode, man.
You got to take the little victories. There is a lot to talk about. We're going to get to all that. And I say we jump right into this, man. Let's go ahead and start off with our top 5 co-op games. I'm excited about this list. I was thinking about it, like as I was putting it together. I think there's going to be redundancy here. I think I'm calling 4 out of 5 games.
Wow.
I think 4 out of 5 games are going to be redundant.
Wow, that's
my prediction. I'm tempted to take the under because I think it might wind up being 3. But I'm going to put the. You're going to go 2?
Yeah, right. I'm going 2 out of 5.
Okay. The under it is.
Start this thing out. I just got to give honorable mentions to a couple games.
No doubt.
This game right here, Battletoads by itself, Double Dragon by itself. It's Battletoads.
Oh, okay. So you just have a great. I was like, was there like a Double Dragon port of Battletoads I never knew about?
Yeah. So the I got to give an honorable mention to all those beat 'em ups, like your Final Fights, your Streets of Rage, your Crashing the Boys, like. There were so many good ones, The Simpsons arcade game. That's another one. I did use a little bit of strange. I used a strange requirement for games on this list because the show is Console Control. I had to avoid a couple arcade games like Kane and Lynch, The Simpsons arcade. I absolutely love those. The WWE Royal Rumble game, like I absolutely love those games as co-op games, but they were strictly arcade, and it's like we dance that line. Like, are we talking about console games? Are we talking about arcade games? So I just went ahead and left all those out there. Number 5, Firewall Zero Hour. Look, you knew it was coming.
It's been worked into these top 5 lists for consecutive weeks, and why should this one be any different? Because it's a great pick.
You knew it was coming. It was one of my top games of all time a couple episodes ago. So if I didn't include this in the co-op list, I would just be hypocritical. Another reason why I'm bringing it up is just to remind everybody out there that you haven't played it. You haven't played this game. What's wrong with you? You haven't played it. My apologies go out to Snizzy the Beast, Lionsy, and the Hoon, because that's it. Cracks Attack, Snizzy the Beast, Lionsy, and the Hoon. It's the only 4 players that ever played this game. Nobody else ever has.
It's true. You've been warned. You've been warned, all y'all randos out there. Firewall Zero Hour. You need to play this game. You need to. You will thank us when you get done.
I mean, it's the best video game experience since like Super Mario Brothers, playing that for the first time, or Wii Bowling. When you played Wii Bowling for the first time, you're like, wow, this is totally different. There's so much potential to this. However, Wii Bowling never really lived up to the potential. But I'm here to tell you, Firewall Zero Hour lives up to the potential of PSVR and the aim controller. And if you haven't played it, you're missing out. Like I'm not bothered by the fact that you haven't played it because you're the loser here. Like you're the one that has
You've
lost.
only cheated yourselves.
You've only cheated yourselves. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I could give a quick synopsis of this game, but instead, drop back. It's in episode 1 where we're talking about the 5 greatest games of all time. Drop back, drop a like, subscribe, check it out, and you'll learn all about this game. So that's it.
I'm going to start working these plugs. I'm going to start working these plugs into just like regular conversation so nobody notices. I'm just going to start saying it after sentences. Just try to drive home the subliminal message to like and subscribe.
Oh man, I like that.
I'm gonna start working it in. We'll see whether or not that takes. Now does seem like a really good time to point out like and subscribe. The fact that people try to sell you on the fact that like the VR game to play is super hot. Like you're gonna get from super hot the real good shooting experience, and I'm here to tell you, having played both games pretty extensively, this is not true. Like I'm not here to rag on super hot at all, but it is not at all the same experience as Firewall is from a first person shooter perspective or from a gameplay perspective, and definitely not from a co-op perspective. Super hot isn't even a co-op game, so it's a completely different experience. I know that the buzz will have you say, conventional opinion, popular opinion will have you think that super hot is like the John Wick experience is what I've heard it described as a lot of times. And that's false. That's just a false take. Let me be very clear about something. Super hot is a puzzle game. It is a very interesting and well put together puzzle game. But at the end of the day, it is a puzzle game, and that definitely needs to be pointed out.
Yeah,
that's all.
I like what you had to say there. I don't know that I would subscribe to that, but I do like it. That's my number 5. Moving on, Cracks. Which
a good pick. Number 5. A good pick. Let me consult my notes here. Ah, yes. How could I forget? Because we literally just talked about it in that little rundown of beat 'em ups. Double Dragon, right? Double Dragon is my number 5, and yeah. You can't. It's hard to think about Double Dragon without immediately thinking about all the rest of those, all your Streets of Rages, all your Final Fights, all of that stuff. And I, as a kid, and even today, although they're far less popular today, I have always really enjoyed those games. Not in the least because I really enjoy co-op games in general. I just, I like playing on the same team as people. That's just kind of player I am. And Double Dragon was, it's kind of the OG, right? Like it was.
I'm pretty sure, like, that's why I wanted to give it a shout out before it got going, is because Double Dragon was the first co-op, I think it was Double Dragon 2, actually, was the first co-op game that I ever played. Way back, 1987, 88, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, it's definitely the earliest one that I can remember. I tried to remember an older one, but all of the multiplayer stuff I can remember from earlier than that was competitive or adversarial. Like there was Karate Champ, but that's not a co-op thing. Like that's, you have 2-player stuff, but nothing that was as cooperative as that. And very few things back in those days replicated the experience of taking back the streets with cold, hard vigilante justice, quite like Double Dragon did. It was a great game, and that was also, I should point out, by my recollection, that was also the first game to feature an actual, like, aside from Karate Champ I just mentioned, like that was a more fleshed out version of like an actual fighting game. Because I feel like I've brought up Karate Champ a lot on this show already for some reason, somehow. I don't know why that is, but I remember saying it a bunch of times. Karate Champ was basically structured the way an actual karate tournament used to be structured. I don't know if they're still structured this way or not. I get the sense that they're not, but it was, somebody would score a strike and the ref would stop the action and award a point. So like, yeah. So he would like raise a flag, award the point to the side, and then you'd reset and go again. So a scrap, if you will, only lasted as long as it took for one person to land a hit, which, as you can imagine, does not take very long. If you've ever watched like an Olympic fencing match, you know what I'm talking about. It was very similarly paced. Like the action would start and then there'd be a flurry of motion, and then the point is done and it's over. Karate Champ played very much the same way. So you took, you didn't take turns, but like one guy would score a point, another guy would score a point, and every time somebody scored a point, the action would stop. Double Dragon was the first incarnation of what can be recognized as today's fighting games, where two people were on two different sides of a thing. There was a mode. This didn't happen in the regular game where you like were beating up the streets and whatnot, but there was a mode you could go into, and you'd choose a guy, and the other player would choose a guy, and you would just fight with no breaks, no holds barred. Pick up a lead pipe if you must. If you got one laying around, you could pick up that and go to town. That was the earliest incarnation that I can recall of something that resembled today's fighting games, and I think it deserves a shout out for that too. Double Dragon, you got 50,000 on Double Dragon? It's legendary for a reason, people. Legendary for a reason. And bonus cool points to you if you know what I just said. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, man. I'm a little disappointed that you brought up Double Dragon because now our show's going to get canceled. Because I don't know if you remember how that game started, but it started with a man beating up a woman.
Oh no, I did not remember that.
Yep.
I have crossed a line that I can't unring that bell.
Yep, he just walks right up to Jimmy Dragon's girlfriend, just boom, punches her right in the stomach. She hunches over, he throws her over the shoulder, caveman style, and rolls out.
Oh, I do remember that. Oh man, I didn't remember that when I was thinking about the game. I try to do this stuff I don't do research for these. I just kind of pull off the top of my head, just my pool of knowledge. Didn't remember that, but now that you're saying that, I do remember that. And then like all those thugs like carry the girl off to somewhere
Yep.
and they just like go into some building and like, well, that's the game. Go get the girl. Yeah.
Yep, go get her. Go get her back.
The time-honored tradition of saving the princess. Hey, it's 2021. Anybody got time for that anymore?
Nope.
What we do have time for is number 4.
Number 4. So, there's a little theme to my list here, and I want to see if you guys pick up on it. Put it down in the comments. We'll send bonus points your way, much like that quote that Cracks just talked about a second ago. Throw it down in the comments. We'll give you some bonus points here. My number 4 game of all time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade. Go Ninja,
Right on, man.
go Ninja, go Ninja.
Let me just say, when you ran down all those lists of beat 'em ups for your honorable mention, and you left that game conspicuously out, I knew something was up.
Yeah.
I knew something was up.
Yeah, so, like I said, the caveat going into my list is I didn't include any arcade games, but this game was actually a port over to the NES. It was
Greatest day of my life.
Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade. And man, this is, a couple weeks ago, I talked about how much I hated the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game and how terrible that was. So when this one came out, I was hesitant until I saw the still shot of it, and it looked just like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game in the arcade. And it was at that minute on that I was in love with this game. And man, it was so much fun teaming up with a buddy. You're Leonardo, they're Michelangelo. You got to pick any turtle that you wanted, so you got to be your favorite turtle. And
An embarrassment of riches, to be sure.
yeah, man, it was just the creme de la creme of beat 'em ups, in my opinion. Like, yeah, there was the Simpsons one, it was good. The X-Men one, it was good. But like I said, those were all arcades, and they never made the jump over to the consoles. And for this very reason is why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade, is my number 4 game, co-op game of all time.
Great choice. I have to talk a little bit about how much money that port saved me over the
Dude.
long run, right? Because the money that I sank into that coin op, like there was a bowling alley near where we lived, and that bowling alley happened to have this game that we're discussing right now, and the money that I sank into that coin op, I'm not sure I want to know what that figure is, because it was a lot, man. Like, it was a pretty hard game in the arcade, and it was very difficult to get really anywhere without, dying a bunch of times. And, back then, if you died a bunch of times, you had to keep feeding it quarters to keep playing. And, oh, did I ever. So when I found out that was getting ported to the NES, the first thing I thought was, wait a second, that's going to be the same game, except I can play it without having to just pay over and over. Like, I can give you one lump sum up front and then never have to pay to play that game again. I was on that game all the time.
That's it. It's like you were like, Mom, I have to have this game. It's just fiscally responsible.
Yeah, easy sell, easy
Easy
sell.
sell. And they're like,
If she
wait,
had
wait.
any sense about her, she knew what was good.
So that's it, man. That's my number 4. Cracks. Number 4.
Good pick.
What you
Number
got?
4, top 5 co-op games. Number 4 is, in my book, Predator Hunting Grounds.
Oh,
Right.
wow. Okay.
Right. See, not entirely like what you think of at first as a purely cooperative game, but it was. It's what people refer to as like an asymmetrical multiplayer, right? Asymmetrical multiplayer is what they call those. So like one person's the predator, and then there's a fire team made up of 4 dudes, and it's basically the predator versus a fire team of 4 dudes. Plus, the fire team of 4 dudes has to fight like 1,000 bots that are just that play mercenaries and stuff walking around the map. But mostly it's about getting the predator. And yeah, the predator's by himself, but if you're on the fire team, as was pretty much always the case, it was really hard to get a match as the predator playing that game. But you had to work with 3 other people to survive, and there was a ton of emphasis on cooperation. Not as much as Firewall. Firewall, it was definitely it was more important. It was more important to cooperate in Firewall than it was in like the cooperative elements in Firewall, I should say, are a lot more significant than they were in Predator, but they were still present in Predator, and Predator did them, really well. You had to communicate, you had to go in with a plan. If one person freaked out and went rogue, then it was bad news for everybody, and that's kind of the definition of cooperative style play, in my opinion. Great game. I didn't like it as much as I liked Friday the 13th. I talked about that in a previous episode. Like and subscribe. But I still really enjoyed my time with Predator Hunting Grounds. I know that game catches a little bit of flack because it was unbalanced for a little while, but for me, that never really changed how much fun I had and just the crazy times I was privy to playing that game, just with out with my buds in the jungle hunting down predators and stuff. Oh man, I thought that game was great.
Yeah, that game was a ton of fun. What's crazy is that it was horribly received. A lot of the pundits out there say that it's just crap, and like I think it's crap that they think that game's crap because yeah, it was a little wonky, and like some weapons were overpowered at times from time to time, but it didn't take away from how much fun it was teaming up with 3 other players to cooperatively take down the predator.
And the feeling that you got when you did it was incredible.
Man, so good.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah,
So good.
Love that game.
Yeah, it was like you really just wanted to high five everybody. Like,
Yeah, totally. Yep, totally. Or just getting out alive. I've talked a lot about killing the predator. That wasn't actually the goal, to kill the predator. The only goal was to get out alive, really. You just got like bonus points and stuff for killing the predator, and oftentimes that's what it came down to because the predator tend to press the action a lot. But yeah,
great
should
one.
point that out. Yeah, that's number. Oh yeah, 4. That was 4, which brings us now to 3 then.
Number 3, and then 2010, Overcooked 2.
Oh, that one got by me.
Oh man, let me tell you, if you have a significant other that loves gaming and domestic violence that you want to break up with tonight, play that game with them. Play that game with your significant other, and you are guaranteed a divorce or a nasty breakup or some kind of domestic violence. It's guaranteed. Reason I say this is this game is just high octane fun. Like, I mean, you have if you're not familiar with the game, how it works is it's kind of the top-down view of a zany cartoon kitchen, and it's just you and your cooperative teammate, and orders come across the top of the screen of certain food items that you have to make, and if it's like sushi, somebody has to take a fish and put it on the cutting table and cut it up, and then somebody has to cook the rice, and then you have to plate it and deliver it all in a certain amount of time. So this game is all about the quest for efficiency, like, and execution. Like, you just want to ace every single order as fast as you can, because based on how fast you get the order completed and how accurately you get the order completed is how many points you get for doing so. And in order to unlock the next level, you have to reach a certain amount of points. And let me tell you, if you, I think when the cliche was born that if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, it was because somebody was playing Overcooked 2 way back in the day. Because
For
I
sure.
mean, it applies so that cliche applies so perfectly to this game. But yeah, like I said, if you value your relationship with your significant other, don't play this game with them. However, if you want to get into a fist fight with them
Yeah.
tonight, then fire up Overcooked 2,
Yeah.
hand he or her a controller, and let the fists fly.
Yeah, I can attest things do definitely get heated. And it is not an easy game to master either.
No.
And I found that out the hard way when you and I actually had, I thought we were pretty good at that game. And then we played a couple of friends of ours a little while back and got destroyed. Like they had been, we were talking, I remember talking to them about it and they were like, oh yeah, we play that game sometimes. We're like, oh yeah, let's have an Overcooked throwdown. And then we did it and we got obliterated. Like it wasn't even close. I remember that was one of the worst beatings I've ever taken at a video game, in fact. So it's difficult to master, but it was definitely a lot of fun, and it does definitely get heated. So I mean, if your relationship can handle that kind of spice, yeah, I'd say that's a good recommendation. Pun intended. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that specific battle, because what I did forget to mention is the only thing that makes this game more fun than playing it with your significant other is playing it against a friend and their significant other as well. And it's like a house versus house showdown. Like if you like Top Chef and the rest of those cooking shows, like, and you want to play the video game version of that, you want to play Overcooked too.
Yeah, good one.
But yeah, that's my number three. Cracks.
Number three, Portal 2.
Okay.
I was expecting this one to be redundant.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out yet whether or not it is, if it clocks in a number two or number one for you. But
Definitely not. It's not on my list at all.
yeah, Portal 2, very cool. Portal 2 is mine because well, I've actually never played that game on my own. I've only ever played that game with another person. So like my entire experience with that game has been cooperative, and in a sort of a departure from most of the rest of the cooperative stuff that made my list, this wasn't so much an action oriented cooperative experience as it is a puzzle solving oriented cooperative experience, which is really cool, you know. I mean, Portal anyway has a reputation for not being your standard sort of game as it is. And yeah, like I can't really say what the game is like playing by yourself, but as a co-op experience, it was a lot of fun. Just like you get a similar sort of high-fiving vibe that you get with Predator when you figure stuff out. It's like it's a different cause, but the end result is a little bit the same. You know what I mean? You're still going through a lot, and you're still like just cooking your brain on some of this stuff. And some of those areas held me up for a long time, like a significant amount of time. And then when you break through those barriers and accomplish the thing, it's a very rewarding experience. So if you are someone who isn't so much into the action oriented stuff, Portal 2 comes very highly recommended. I actually never played the first Portal, otherwise I'd probably recommend that too, but I've never played that. I only ever played the second one.
Yeah, I don't think the first Portal was co-op. I think it was just single player.
Oh, that's even better then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you that Portal 2 is one of the best co-op games, just because of the teamwork that was required to get things done. And
Had to have it.
there wasn't really a ton of enemies in that game, so you could take your time and think things over and talk strategy. And yeah, great choice, man.
Yeah.
Great choice.
And then when it was time to go, like some of that stuff was like had timing requirements. And if every link in that chain wasn't doing what it was supposed to be, if everybody wasn't on point with all the jobs that they had, then the whole thing just kind of fell apart like Mousetrap, you know? And it was a lot of fun to work through, man.
Yeah, I really like your number three pick. Subscribe. So brings me to my number two.
Number two.
So you might start to pick up on the theme of Ben's list here. Little Big Planet 2. So, Little Big Planet 2 is kind of the opposite of Overcooked 2. When I say that, it's still a co-op game. It's just if you have a significant other that loves playing games and you don't want to break up with or get in a fist fight with, I'd recommend Little Big Planet 2. Like my wife and I, we played that game to death. Like we actually played through it once co-op, and then we played through it again co-op. It's just a it's just a perfect combination of a co-op game for me, like because it has a little bit of everything. Cracks just talked about Portal 2 and the puzzles that are in it. Little Big Planet 2 had similar kind of puzzles where it took both players to do their respective job or to see a plan to the finish in order to successfully complete that area. And then it had just everything. It was like a mashup of sorts. Like at one point you're both flying and you're doing like a side-scrolling flying shooter game where you just shoot all kinds of things coming at you. It's a two-player like side-scrolling platformer where you got to jump from platform to platform, but you have to do it together as a team. You can't just dust your other player because they'll get left behind. And if
Learn some lessons from Contra, clearly.
yeah. Like if they get left behind, you get to drop back and try to, and make sure that they don't die or whatever. But man, it's a it's a fantastic co-op game that I'd highly recommend if you have a significant other that loves playing video games. I would highly recommend this game because it's just a great bonding experience.
That's
But
cool. I would very much like to add something to that, but I have never played any Little Big Planet game. I still have yet to venture into the wilderness of Little Big Planet.
yeah,
It now occupies space on my list of probably best games I have yet to play.
yeah, that one.
Now
I
that
mean,
Shadow of the Colossus is no longer on it. Now Little Big Planet is like moved up with something. I'm not gonna go on Shadow of the Colossus. I'm not. I know you might be thinking that's what's about to happen. It's not. I said what I said. It's out there. We're all gonna have to deal with it. I'm done now. Carry on.
yeah, talk about beating a dead aggro.
Which you couldn't do, by the way.
But yeah, I like that you mentioned that part because the Little Big Planet, the series is really known for its creation tools.
Yeah, that's what I associate with it.
And by far, Little Big Planet 2 has the best gameplay. Like Little Big Planet 1, the gameplay was just to kind of unlock the creation tools. Little Big Planet 3 tried to be really cool, where like you could have different sack characters that were all capable of certain things, but in my opinion, it just failed miserably. It just didn't. It couldn't hold up to Little Big Planet 2. I'm not saying Little Big Planet 3 is a bad game. It just couldn't hold up to the bar that Little Big Planet 2 set. But that's my number 2 game of all time. Cracks was number 2 on your list.
Number 2 co-op game of all time. Ready for this? Firewall, 0 hour, number 2 on my list, right? And I mean, at this point, what hasn't been said? What else can we possibly say about this game to get people to play it, like, and subscribe? Answer me that. What else is left to say? The only thing I guess I want to emphasize, since we've kind of hit on everything, is like the reason it's so high on my list, like number 2 and not number 5 or even later, is that like cooperation is everything in this game. It's everything. Like a lot of these other games we're talking about, it's possible to sort of be disjointed and still succeed in some way, but that's not the case with Firewall. Firewall demands a very high, if you're an RPG character, you need to have a very high synergy rating, let's say. Like there has to be a lot of team cohesion in order to find success at that game. Like it's the one thing that the game is sort of predicated on more than anything else. You would think, being a first-person shooter, that it would be a first-person shooter first. And I mean, you'd be forgiven for thinking that, but honestly, I think the cooperative elements are the single most important aspect of that game, because you could make that same game. You could, for example, you could put, you could give everybody a knife in that game, or something that couldn't fire a projectile, and you would still need those cooperative elements to succeed. Like, not having a gun doesn't really change anything. You still need to be able to talk to each other. You still need to be able to communicate, and that stuff was so hugely important in Firewall. That's why it's so high on the list, and it does that particular thing very, very, very well.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
I forgot to mention it when I was talking about it, but it's 4 versus 4 online, and if one member of your team doesn't execute the plan or stick to the plan or hold their own, you're in a severe disadvantage, So like if you get a rando on your team that gets killed and goes into the support cameras to tell you where the opposition is, and they don't say anything, they decide to Anne Frank it, like your your team is not as well off as the team you're going against, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, it is co-op. You
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to communicate and execute as a team, or you will lose.
Yeah. It's more about that than anything. You can switch the weapons out with whatever you want. It doesn't matter that the other team has like better guns or anything like that. No, you can throw all that out. What matters more than anything by far is your ability to work as a team. So
Yeah,
there it is.
great, great.
Down to
number two.
one.
Number one. Portal 2. It's
Oh,
Portal 2.
nice, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
It did. It
Yep.
did make an appearance.
So we did have some duplicates on here.
There was some overlap, yeah.
Yeah. The Portal 2, I think the one thing that I have to talk about that Cracks didn't mention was the sheer and utter brilliance of the game designers to create those puzzles. Like there are times, The Witness, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but there are times like you play a game like The Witness where you ask yourself the question, how did they make this puzzle? Like, who in the name of Beethoven genius level type Einstein? I have no idea how they did it. And Portal 2 is one of those games. You play through the game, and you get to the finish line. You both make it to the finish line, and you reflect back on what it is you just did, and you have to think to yourself, like, somebody made that from scratch. And it would make sense if that game had 5 levels or 10 levels, but I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say there's closer to 70, maybe 80 levels in that game, and
It was a lot, yeah.
it is unbelievable. It's unbelievable how they made that game, and like Cracks talked about earlier, like the feeling that you got when you both made it to the finish line. It was just like, yeah, high five, all right, bring on the next one. And then you get into the next one, you're like, I'm stuck, I got nothing, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to
What
do.
else, Gladys?
Yeah, shoot a portal here, and the teleporting of those portals. Like, what a innovative video game design. That, like, while I'm not shocked that we haven't seen it more, I think the reason we haven't seen it more is because people just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, right.
I don't know of too many games that has that teleporting kind of thing to it. Portal, and there's this game called Budget Cuts for PSVR, and that's pretty much it to my knowledge. But the reason is number one is for things like that, the innovation that game had, the brilliance of the puzzles, the 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 co-optedness of the game, where, like, I mean, you just like, you completed the level and you felt like a legitimate team. In my opinion, I think every single, like, corporation out there should have a team building exercise where they just pair up with the closest person that person works with, like the guy on the other side of the cubicle or whatever, and they just play that game, because It's just such a great team building co-op game that it's number
Yeah.
one on my list.
It deserves a lot of credit for sure. And pretty much you've heard my 2 cents on it, so I suppose I'll go ahead and move on then.
Number one, Cracks.
Number one, and look, I'm going to tell you right now, I know that this is not going to be a popular choice amongst the randos out there. I already know this is going to draw some ire, and I'm going to tell you right now, feel free to let me know about it in the comments, right? But it is what it is for a very good reason. My number one cooperative game of all time is Resident Evil 5, specific Resident Evil 5. Now I know that game gets kind of a hard rap because people are like, oh, that's not Resident Evil. They got away from the hardware. That's an action game. But let me tell you something. This is something you got to understand about the Cracks household. That is, Resident Evil 5 is the standard by which all other video games are measured by my wife. It is my wife's favorite game of all time. My wife played that game so much, she has the platinum trophy for Resident Evil 5, right? And we never played it alone. We always played it with each other. All the adventures, all the grinding, we did it all. Platinum trophies all around. Now, I understand why that game gets the rap that it does, but I think people were so disillusioned with the fact that it wasn't enough like earlier Resident Evils, like, you know, the atmospheric survival horror stuff. I think people were so disillusioned by that they sort of overlooked what that game did really well. And make all the jokes you want to about Chris Redfield punching boulders and, you know, whatever else you might want to rag on. Make all those jokes. You're well within your rights to do so. But that game actually did cooperative play very well. And don't let the fact that the AI was atrocious when you played by yourself, don't let the fact that that was so bad taint your view of how good that game or how fun that game was when you played with another person. Feel free to let me know how wrong I am about that in the comments, by all means. And that is my number one cooperative game of all time.
Look, I'll let you know right now, I hated that game. I thought it was absolutely terrible. What's funny is that I was looking up a list of, I always like to do this when I make my list, is I look up a list of what everybody thinks the top 50 or top 100 co-op games are, just to make sure I'm not missing one.
Right.
And that one showed up on that list, and I nearly puked.
Well, what you don't know is, like, you may wonder, like, okay, it's one thing to have it on your list, Cracks, but number one on your list, what you don't realize is that just off screen, my wife is standing here threatening my life, and so like I am domestically obligated to rank Resident Evil 5 where I've ranked it. I'm going to put that out there. You can do with that what you will. There's my top 5 cooperative games of all time, ladies and gentlemen.
Like it. Subscribe it.
Down to brass tacks. Here's an opinion. Generally speaking, movies that have been adapted from video games have historically not been great. Would you say that's a pretty uncontroversial view to hold?
Oh yeah, I mean they have just been bad. Like
right.
I could probably name good video game movies on one hand, and by good I just mean like I watched it from start to finish. I made it from beginning to end.
The bar is very low.
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, yeah. Now, every once in a while, someone thinks to ask the question, well, why? Why is that? And a lot of times the answer you'll hear from people is, well, it goes something along the lines of, well, video games by their nature are an interactive medium. Movies by their nature are not an interactive medium. So there's a fundamental disconnection between the two of those mediums that makes one difficult to adapt into the other. That's one theory. My feeling is that video game movies have so far not been great because they keep getting done by people who are not good at making movies. I think it's pretty much that simple. Now, when I saw, I was very, very excited for the new Mortal Kombat. I am a huge fan of Hiroyuki Sanada. I love him in everything I've seen him in. And I also am a huge fan of Joe Taslim. The first thing I want to say about this movie is that those two guys were perfect. Sanada was a perfect Hanzo Hasashi, and Joe Taslim was a perfect Bi-Han, known to the layman perhaps as Scorpion and Sub-Zero respectively. They were perfect, right? And both of those guys are freight trains on a screen. They know what they're doing. I just talked about that show. I talked about that show Warrior on HBO Max on a couple of shows ago, or maybe it was last show. Go check it out for yourselves. And Joe Taslim has a really big part in that show, and he's amazing, right? And he's amazing in this movie. Both of those guys are they are perfect. So to give you some context of what my expectations were, and well, to be fair, before I had seen any of it, my expectations weren't high for all the reasons we just discussed. Generally speaking, video game movies have not been good. So the bar is really low. You don't have to clear a very high bar to be considered one of the greatest of those of all time, right? So my expectations are definitely tempered. And then I saw the first 8 minutes of that movie. Now, 21 years ago, before comic book movies had been figured out, right? People had not yet figured out that it's not about the superpowers as much as it is about the people. Like, if your characters are not relatable, things tend to be less interesting. And people had spent so much time, making movies about guys punching things and lifting things and fighting people that they sort of ignored actual character development. Now, there's a conversation to be had about how much that's still a problem today, and certainly it does still sort of hang over the genre, in my opinion, but they've come a long way, I think, in that particular regard. Now, before 2000, the year 2000, with apologies to Blade, a lot of movies hadn't really bothered with any real kind of character development. And then Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen signed on to do X-Men. And they immediately brought a credibility to that genre that had not previously been there, right? Those two guys were, they're seasoned actors. They know what they're doing, and they're amazing anytime they show up. And they recognized in the source material that there was room to talk about really interesting and frankly, really important things. And so now suddenly you have stories about, one guy who's telepathic and one guy who can move metal with his mind. Suddenly you have that paired with all these great narratives about what it was like to live in an internment camp and the personal damage that can be done to a person when, fascism runs amok and people are discriminated just because of how they're born, right? All of a sudden, there were useful things being said. And Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen changed that just by showing up for the job, right? They immediately brought credibility to that genre. After I watched the first 8 minutes of Mortal Kombat, I thought that video game movies were about to have that same moment. And I got super excited. Because, oh man, like everything in those first 8 minutes was perfect. Like you had this whole thing, like they didn't really get into, why Hanzo and Bi-Han, why necessarily they were always at each other's throats. They didn't really get into that, but they didn't need to because you saw how personal it was between these dudes. And let me just say, the way that whole thing unfolded, like, Hanzo goes to get the water and then Bi-Han shows up and the VFX team is on point through the whole movie, by the way. Like the VFX team was amazing.
Spoiler alerts.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Y'all know what it is. Y'all already know what it is.
This episode, so
yeah,
unless you saw a previous episode and liked and subscribed to that, you wouldn't know that Krax is all about spoilers. He likes to get spoily.
Yeah. I'm not treading lightly here, folks. I got a lot of things to say. Y'all know what it is. So yeah. So there's this whole thing about how personal this all is. And they even go out of their way to point out that like Hanzo and Bi-Han, they can't even understand each other. One guy's speaking Japanese and one guy's speaking Chinese, and it's sort of implied that they've never actually communicated in a meaningful way with each other other than to try and kill each other at various times. So when that moment where everything is unfolding, everything's on point, VFX is on point, Bi-Han shows up, bad things start happening, Hanzo hears his wife scream, he runs back, and then there's this really heart-wrenching moment where he sees the results, he sees the damage. And then a bunch of Lin Kuei show up, and Hanzo's mad. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, these boys are coming for Hanzo. Well, that's not a very good idea. Good luck with that, fellas. And, it goes the way you would expect it to go. Now, the first 8 minutes of that movie, I haven't said anything outside of the first 8 minutes, by the way. The first 8 minutes of that movie are amazing. And then, here's your real spoiler alert, because now I'm gonna get to it. And then, for reasons I will never understand, those two characters are pretty much sidelined for the rest of the movie until the end of it, which I won't say too much about. And for me, dude, if you had just given me a movie about those two guys and their rivalry, you could have thrown the rest out. And I would have absolutely loved that movie. I would be so much more interested in, so we all know the story. Like, it's no secret. Hanzo Hasashi spends time in hell. He comes back as a spirit of vengeance. It's all very, it's all very intense. Well, I would have really been interested to see what his time was like down there. And so when the grand reveal finally happens and you finally see Hanzo again, it's like, oh man, well, okay, what's he been through? Well, you don't know, because they didn't take any time to talk about it. All they take time to talk about is this random chucklehead named Cole Young, who has a family he's trying to save or something. I'm not even really clear on what his motive. I mean, obviously he's trying to save them, but what's his main thing? Is his main thing to win Mortal Kombat, or is his main thing the family thing? I don't know. I was a little bit fuzzy on that, but you have these two guys who are amazing actors, and they were criminally underutilized, in my opinion. Now, that said, I've heard a reaction to this movie that some people are saying it's worse.
Best video game movie ever.
Yeah. I've heard a reaction that this is somehow worse than Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and let me categorically deny those claims. That's absolutely not true. Mortal Kombat Annihilation is an abomination that should not exist. This movie is way better than that. Way better than that. I mean, just you could take the VFX alone, and it automatically makes it one of the. I mean, a special shout out to the Sub-Zero effects, man. They were so cool, and it gets right the things that a Mortal Kombat movie should get right. Absolutely, the fights were on point, the choreography was really good. I heard somebody say the choreography wasn't that good. That's not true. The choreography is very good. It seemed good to me anyway. I had no problem with any of that. I thought a lot of that stuff was amazing. I just really didn't like the main character very much. I didn't understand what he was doing there, and I thought it was regrettable that they sidelined two amazing actors who could have brought that same credibility to the genre, and they just didn't really use them in the way I would have liked.
Yeah, I understand. I understand exactly where you're coming from. However, it's just Hollywood, so you can't get mad at it. So, what happens in Hollywood is
I get mad at it.
Yeah, they're the script for a Mortal Kombat movie comes to their desk and they're like, okay, and then they take it and just wipe their asses with it, and then they do whatever they want. That's what it seemed like in every other video game movie that I've ever seen, except for this one. This one, I think what they've done is they made this movie and they were like, let's try a different direction. Let's try what, the Marvel movies have done, where it's a lot of just fan service, where it's a lot of let's give the fans of the franchise exactly what it is that they're looking for, and let's cram as much of that into this movie as we can. And that's the unfortunate thing is, from the Avengers business model is you're not going to get a backstory on Black Widow. You're not going to get a story on Hawkeye. You're going to get this little 5-minute, here's how he was created kind of thing, and boom, he's into the movie. And I do agree that that's, you're not developing the character, and I do agree that developing the character of Cole was a bad focal point, but at the same time, to take the Mortal Kombat franchise and to make one movie, because we don't know how successful it's going to be. That they may have left it open for a sequel, but if it doesn't make bank, we're not going to see a sequel. So because of that fact, they can't just take Sub-Zero versus Scorpion and make a movie on it, because what, I played a lot of the Mortal Kombat games. Like, as Scorpion, you didn't face Sub-Zero at the end. As Sub-Zero, you didn't face Scorpion at the end. And, like, I get it that they have a historic past, but maybe if the franchise stays successful, the lack of using them in this movie leaves the door open for that movie down the line. If video game movies catch on the way that the comic book movies have caught on, and that's the reason why I say this is the best video game movie I've ever seen. Is it a 10 out of 10? Is it like Todd Phillips's Joker to the comic book genre? I wouldn't go that far. It's just better than all the other stuff that I've seen. Now, that being said, I don't think that every video game movie has been junk. Like, I think that, Resident Evil, the first one or two of those were pretty good. I mean, they they didn't really stick to the game all that well, but
Alice.
like, yeah, I mean, they were they weren't really associated with the game like you would want it to be. And
Right.
that would be my knock on those movies, is that they're not
Yeah.
bad movies. They're just not Resident Evil. Like,
Yeah.
Tomb Raider, kind of a similar thing. It's like Tomb Raider, let's just have a hot chick Indiana Jones. Like, that's
Right.
like the angle they were trying to take for that. And
Yeah.
like, I do understand it, but like what I want to see is, I want to see the fan service. Show me the stuff that people that have played the Mortal Kombat games are going to be like, oh man, like, I
Hmm.
mean, I'm gonna talk about one thing. This is a spoiler for me, but it was the best part about the movie, is when oh man, I forget who it was. Was it Kano? Man, I just watched it 2 days ago and I've already forgotten. Moral of the story is the dude exploits the sweep kick.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
He exploits
yeah.
the
And
sweep kick
they
in
make a
the in
thing
the
about it, like, hey, how many times are you gonna boom sweat? It was like, who can't relate to that?
Oh man, it was so good. It
Yeah.
was so good. Like, I was just like, they've done it. They've
Yeah.
absolutely done it.
Yeah.
And
As soon
like
as it happened, I was like, oh yeah, been there.
and like for me, that's all that I hope for. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with Cracks here, where I think a better movie would have been Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, but like at the same time, like, what they have to try to do, and they have to try to put all of Mortal Kombat into one movie, because they're not guaranteed a sequel. Now, that being said, Hollywood's working on a lot of upcoming stuff. There's an Uncharted series. There's the Twisted Metal TV series. There's the
The
Metal
Last of
Gear.
Us.
Yeah, there's the Metal Gear movies. The Last of Us, exactly. There's all this stuff out there. And like, all that I hope for all of those things is that they do what this Mortal Kombat movie has done, and especially those TV series, because those series are gonna have the time for character development that this movie didn't have. I mean, this movie had to show you the start of Kano, Reptile, Sonya, Jax, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Kung Lao, Liu Kang. It had to show the beginning of all of those characters in what, a 2 hour movie? I'm not sure it was 2 hours.
I think it clocked in under 2 hours. I think it was like an hour and 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, and like, that's just a really hard thing to try to accomplish. So that's why I hope that, in the Twisted Metal series, that's probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most, is that it's not just this brand new thing that doesn't make any sense, and like, the guy works at Sweet Tooth's ice cream shop, and that's like
Yeah.
the only reference to the whole game series that there is. Like,
Right.
that would be a real bummer, but only time will tell. And I got to give props to all the guys that made this Mortal Kombat movie. Great job. Great job. You really, thank you for that. Like, it makes me feel better being a fan of a video game for so long, and being able
Yeah.
to watch, being able to actually watch a video game movie start to finish, and being like, that was great.
Hey,
That was
not
great.
bad.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, very cool. There was without really diving into anything too spoilery, uh, which you can see my exasperation, can't you? Like
Yeah,
I typically don't have to worry about it because I usually am not talking about things that aren't like less than a
brand
year
new.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is just brand new, and I'm just not used to thinking about it. So, sorry, I guess. But which fight was your favorite? Because there were a lot of good ones in there, right?
Oh man, there was a lot of good ones. I mean, I think I think it would be crazy to say that the Sub-Zero Scorpion fight at the beginning wasn't just the best one. I mean, when it
Yeah.
came to choreography and you know that's something.
Style.
Yeah, the style. That's something else that needs to be spoken about in this movie is Krax has been talking about the visual effects, and he's been talking about the choreography as well. And what they did is they didn't mash the two together like in a dumb way. They did it in a
Hmm.
great way where like when you played the Mortal Kombat games, relatively everybody was you know they had a human aspect to them where like nobody could jump 75 feet in the air. Nobody was like electric fast. Like, you had, Melina that could teleport and like Cabal could teleport and, things like that. And that's what this movie held on to is it held on to the human aspect where these guys are just two humans that unlock a special ability and then they can do that special ability. They weren't doing crouching tiger, hidden dragon type stuff where they're just flying
Yeah.
in the trees like
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah. In the interest of fairness, you are absolutely right about that. I despise cable work in martial arts movies. I have always hated it. Like, it does make sense in the context of Crouching Tiger, but like that's the only movie where I could even tolerate it
yeah,
because that was kind of the point in that movie. So like I kind of forgave that. But aside from that, I hate cable work. It never looks good ever. And this movie was really, really good about not, like not trying to make things so outlandish that they didn't have the tech or the practical effect capability to make it look good.
yeah,
Everything they attempted to do, they did it very well. Insofar as like the action was concerned, and I mean, I know I keep crowing about this, but I can't like the effects for Sub-Zero were just to me were just unbelievable, and I have to give an honorable mention to the Sub-Zero versus Jax fight. I'm not gonna say much about it, but like if you watch that movie, just wait for that. Just wait. Like it's not real long, but oh, it is terrific,
yeah.
terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, there was so much great stuff in that movie to talk about, and all I would say to you guys out there watching, I know you don't really listen to what I have to say. That's why you haven't played Firewall yet, and you haven't liked and subscribed to this video. But watch this movie. If you're a fan of video games and the Mortal Kombat series, watch this movie. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
So that was a big part of my week. I waited for 6 months to watch that movie, and then I watched it, and I was like, well, now what? So back to Disco Elysium I went. Still working my way through that. I didn't read the blog post, but I saw a blog post somewhere that had the headline of Disco Elysium, the best game you'll ever read. And I have to say that's fair. That's accurate. That is very accurate. So like I'm still, like I say, on my way through it. It continues to be very, very interesting, and very, very cool. It also continues to be very, very slow. So like if you just to confirm, now that I've played it a lot, if you are someone who prefers your video games more of the action variety, then maybe steer clear of this one. But if you like something that's cerebral and very, very unique, then yeah, Disco Elysium definitely deserves your attention. Aside from that, and trying to sort of uprank my Tekken main, which I'm hit or miss on that front. I'm getting incrementally better as the days go by. I think I'm better now. Honestly, I think I've gotten to a point where I'm better at that now than I ever was. But I've realized, in the same way that I realized it about chess a few years back, I realized that I'm actually not very good. So even though I'm better than I've ever been, I'm still just pretty much a scrub. So that's been a fun thing to learn.
Yeah, that's always enlightening when you get to that point and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm great. Let me take my show on the road, and then you
Yeah.
just get smacked down. And you're like, all right,
Yeah.
back to the drawing board.
It's always fun to get calibrated.
Yeah,
That is what I have certainly been.
that's a good word to use there, calibrate.
Yeah. Calibrated. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for the week, man. It was Mortal Kombat and Disco Elysium and Tekken. Oh, I did download, but I have not played yet. I saw that Horizon Zero Dawn was free on the PlayStation Network, so I have downloaded that. I have not yet started it. Looking forward to that though.
Yeah,
I don't know much about it.
yeah, yeah. Neither do I. All I know is that it was a. I don't know that it was a 10 out of 10, but I know that everybody absolutely loved that game, and it was just another Sony exclusive AAA banger. Yeah, but I hate to keep talking about this, but it's kind of piggybacks on what you were just talking about with Disco Elysium. Is that Horizon Zero Dawn was free, and I think that this is Sony's way of trying to catch up with Xbox's Game Pass, because this is just a rumor. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but the PlayStation Plus games for May are supposed to be Disco Elysium and what else is it? It's another just a big name title that's pretty new.
Oh, wow.
and so I guess PlayStation is they're trying to fire back at Xbox. They're not just going to let them run away with it.
Yeah. At least it appears maybe they're aware of the situation.
Yeah, so if this rumor is true, everybody out there, you've heard Cracks talk about Disco Elysium for the last couple episodes. It should be available. What day would that be? That would be Tuesday, May 3rd, I think, on the PlayStation Network. So keep a lookout for it. It's just a rumor at this point, so if it doesn't show up, don't shoot the messenger, man.
Don't show up with the torches and pitchforks, people.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. Don't do me up like Cracks does Shadow of the Colossus. Look, I'm just.
Yeah. Well, they're already going to be coming for me for the spoilers. They'll probably just throw you on the pile just because they're already here.
Hey, I don't mind it as long as they like.
No
and subscribe.
mercy. No mercy. No mercy here, like and subscribe. You know what it is. It's the internet, man. Like, you can't reasonably expect no spoilers on the internet. I don't want to hear it. Like, I keep saying it. I don't go out of my way to spoil things. I don't like ruining anybody's day. But at the same time, if you're going to talk about something, talk about it. Like, I feel like it would be too much effort to like always kind of police everything that I am thinking, like to like run it through that check before I say it. I just don't really, I play that out in my head, and I don't really like the way that it sounds. So like, I feel like I would come across like really kind of slow,
Oh, like me? You would come across like me?
Well, I mean,
That's all, folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the internet, man. So there's gonna come a day when they show up at our doorstep with torches and pitchforks, no matter what we do. It's the internet we're talking about. So it may as well be sooner rather than later. We can have it out with all the randos now. So you know what? Now that I'm saying that, we take that all back. Come at us. Come at us now. Let's just get it out of the way so we can move on to the next stages of our relationship.
Also, the Sixth Sense, the guy was dead the whole time. There.
Like and subscribe.
There's my spoiler. Come at me, bro.
Rosebud is the bicycle. Or a sled. What was it? It was a sled. Sorry, it was a sled. Rosebud? Was it even Rosebud?
I don't even know. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about that old, I'm talking about Citizen Kane.
Oh, yep. Not familiar.
Oh, okay. I think that thing was called Rosebud, and it was his sled. If you didn't know that before, now you know. The greatest movie of all time. I just spoiled it for everyone.
Yeah, including me. I've never seen it. Great.
Yeah. No mercy. That's just to demonstrate. No mercy here, folks. That's what you're in for. You know what it is.
No chance I like and subscribe to this. I'll comment. Oh boy, will I comment.
Well, good. That's something, that matters too. That pleases the algorithmic gods as well. So that's an acceptable response. So I'm told. Not that I know. I don't know anything about the internet. What I do know is that it has been a week and this has been a show. I don't believe there's anything left to do other than to give a shout out to John Bernthal. John, keep up good work out there, man. Appreciate your work. And aside from that,
Seize up.
yeah,
We out.
seize up. Seas go up. Be safe, be kind, be legendary. We'll see you next week.